Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Heartwell dev stream, the live stream series where I'm continuing to develop this adorable Souls-like action RPG with platforming mechanics and multiple endings. If you find these dev streams interesting or helpful, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and boop that bell button to stay notified. And when we previously left off, we created a new UI element. This will notify the player whether they have enough at speed to level up their player stats, melee weapon stats, or ranged weapon stats without actually needing to open the manifest to check that. So, yeah, nice little quality of life feature, but tonight we'll be focusing a bit more on something on the main menu. So, this actually has to do with the Saiyans and Exits menu a little bit. So, in the Saiyans and Exits menu, we have the ability to control the music volume, the sound effects volume, whether full screen mode is active or not, and whether the lore bit display is set to immersive or passive. However, the main menu only currently has options to control the music volume and the sound effects volume. It does not have anything for full screen mode or lore bit display. So, in the interest of convenience, I'm going to attempt to add some UI elements to the main menu and program them to do a similar function to what we have here. So, without further ado, let's hop to it. Alright, so the very first thing we need to do is determine where in the main menu options menu to put this. So we start rolling over to the main menu. Let's just run the frame real quick. So as we can see in settings, we have music volume, sound effects volume, but nothing else. Definitely have some space to lift here. So let's hop into that. Hello, Copper Nicholson. Thank you so much for dropping by. How's it going? Welcome, welcome. We are adding some new UI stuff. All right. So the design on the main menu is definitely sort of a gray color scheme of sorts, with of course the volume and sound effects volume. See if I can remember what font that is. Okay. I don't think it's bond shrift, but we'll find out. So what I'm attempting to do here, chat, is make sure I have the correct font. Okay, well, obviously we don't. I think it's probably Liwaddle D. Sorry, Liwaddle D. I think. Yep. Alright, Liwaddle 24. Carl Nicholson says you're eating some sushi. Oh, that's awesome. What kind of sushi? I really enjoy spicy tuna sushi, for example. Okay, so for this main menu, we need a couple of things. We need lore bit display. And we need barbecue eel. Ooh, that sounds interesting. Oh, hope you enjoy it. So lore bit display, and we need just to be called viewing mode. Let's see what I called it in the test stream. Full screen mode on or off, and lore bit display immersive or passive. I'll do that. Also, read a message to Toa. Hey, Reen, guess who just wrote a theme song for the new Power Rangers? The Crimson Rose will find her way. A golden dragon primed to slay. The road shadow strikes where justice reigns. A crystal of light whose shadow chains, magic swords the crescent rose, strike the evil as it grows. Every heart and soul persists. Power Rangers, Huntresses, this will be the day to make things right. Welcome to a world of change and light. Huntress morphers are set to prime. Time to end the war. It's morphin' time. I see, that was a cross between, I guess that was a crossover between Transformers and Ruby. Interesting. Okay, let's start with these. And let's also add a smaller text, which I think will be font size 12. No. 14? Yes, okay. So we have on, off, immersive, passive. All right. Oh, hello, Copper Nicholson. What is loud? Oh, is music a bit loud? Let me see if I can turn it down a little. 1 second. Alright, there we go. I think that should make the volume a bit quieter. Let me know if that's too quiet, chat. Oh, no, Copper Nicholson. I turned the volume down on the music, so I'm not sure what you're talking about. If it's not the music, then I have nothing, no control over it in that respect. At least in terms of the volume. Okay, so let's see. Fortunately, full screen mode and lower bit display, those can just be kind of displayed as they are. As for the on, off, and such, we need to make sure we have some buttons. So let's make some buttons. Well, unfortunately, Copper Nicholson, I do not have any control over the volume of that, so if that's happening, you'll just have to turn the volume down, bud. Alright, so let's see, how do we want to do this? I wonder if I can get sort of a grayed out effect like we have here. Okay. Let's make a couple of button prototypes before we do the adjustments. Alright, so for a button to be active, it needs to have a more grayed out appearance. That makes it look less grayed out. Actually, that could work. Hold it. Let's up that on up. Also, Copper Nicholson has redeemed. Read a message as Apollo. The series stars a unicorn pony named Twilight Sparkle, who is a pupil of Equestria's as ruler Princess Celestia. Seeing the young pony buried in the books, the princess sends her to Ponyville and gives her the task of making friends along the path of justice. Along with her assistant Spike, she becomes friends with Rainbow Dash, Rarity, Applejack, Fluttershy, and Pinkie Pie. Together, they explore the ins and outs of the town, solving various problems such as Dungeons and Dragons monsters attacks. Actually, wait a second. Don't we already have Ah, I see. Well, that's when it's active. Okay, well, we can use the same kind of principle here then. All right. To quote Jim Carrey, no time for talking, it's time to push buttons. Well, actually, this is not quite time to push buttons. We have to make the buttons first. Once we make the buttons, then it will be time to push buttons. Alright. I don't think I changed the... Yeah, I don't. Okay. So here, chat, we'll just make 4 groups of buttons. Like so. Is a bit longer. It needs to be long enough to contain the word immersive. Alrighty. Copper Nicholson asks, if I were in charge of writing an episode of My Little Pony, what kind of monster would I have them fight? Let's see. If I was in charge of writing an MLP episode, what monster would they fight? I'll have to think about that. Do you have any thoughts, Copper Nicholson? Alright, well, how about this then? Imagine Copper Nicholson the monster they fight is actually themselves, but from, like, perhaps, like, from the past. So, like, they're actually sent back in time to try and help themselves out, but it's in a timeline where they're actually not the good guys. Or rather, they're going down a really dark path, and it's their job to bring themselves back to the light, so to speak. I think that'd be interesting. Yes, they've already shown the capacity for time travel and stuff. So imagine if it was truly them facing themselves. Or how about like an alternate timeline kind of thing, where it's like, maybe one of the villains is rightly pointing out to them, like, oh, you really think you'd be in a better spot if you were in my position? I can prove to you that you wouldn't be. And then sends them to an alternate universe where indeed, like, they see how they themselves could have been led astray. And then have to bring themselves back. That, I think, would be pretty interesting. Anyway, what about you, Copper Nicholson? You were saying, like, the board cube? I see. What would that even be? I'd have many questions. Right, but I'm not talking about evil clones. I actually legitimately mean actually them. It's just different circumstances. You know? Like, no knockoff shenanigans, a genuine, like, reflection on the characters, each of them, to make them see, like, what would their worst selves really be? Not, like, some interpretation of it, no, genuinely, like... I think that would be a lot more connecting, offer a much better connection to them, personally, because it would at least, it wouldn't be like some hypothetical. It would actually be like, no, this could have been me, you know? Oh, I'll also... Right, but like you admit, Copper Nicholson, like the fact of, like, you know, there's different dimensions, there's time travel and stuff, all that's canon in the show, so it's not like they couldn't have, you know? It's... and on the topic of lore, I've actually finished writing at least the rough drafts of the lore that I want to add to the stats, to the Science and Edits menu. For the next update. I just need to implement that, I need to implement, actually program, the lore in my text file arrays and such, but once that's done, then it'll actually be in my little Science and Edits menu, then I can start propagating the Science and Edits menu code, throughout the other frames. So, very much looking forward to that. Because that Science and Edits, tab of the manifest has been a massive undertaking. But a very but definitely a very necessary one. Alright, Continental Sins asks, your idea was a technological variant of some kind. I see. Oh, Copper Nicholson, the manifest is not food, so that doesn't make any sense. Although, speaking of Copper Nicholson, have you played the Heartwell demo in full at this point? Yes, if you have, I'd be curious to hear what your favorite, what location you're most looking forward to seeing. I know Grekor said he's looking the most forward to seeing Carrier Forest. So, oh yeah, Copper Nicholson, it's on the Heartwell Steam page. There was, you know, I released the demo late last year. It was a pretty massive undertaking. Actually, wait, was it late last year? What year? I'm having trouble remembering. Was it last year? Or was it 2023? Well, when I released the Steam page, you know, there was it really doesn't require very much, Copper Nicholson. Like, it's a pretty low, what's it called? Low spec game in terms of, like, what's required. Okay, so, well, that's there. Now we just need to add the UI elements to the menu frame. I haven't been keeping up with Marvel Rivals, Copper Nicholson. I understand a lot of people liked it. Great for them. I personally prefer what I'm up to, though. Alright. Alright, let's change the background color just to make it a bit easier to see what we're looking at. There we go. Let's see here. So by default, full screen mode would be on. Hold on, better make some notes about this. Need to update programming for the Fluids UI to be on frame. Everyone has different preferences, Copper Nicholson. If you like Aquafina, good for you. Div. Enough frames. All right, let's so before we do anything, need 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. Okay. So where is the code that determines which thing is display? That's the save file value. There's a game. Okay. These are the records. The delete function. Oh, that would have. Okay, here's the equation. So this is the equation that determines which animation is active, so I'll need to update this. Let's see here. Well, first let's figure out this equation. One plus record value. there's probably an explanation I wrote for this, so let's uncheck that. Use the file animation to highlight the save file then. So it needs to yield a 14 and a 9. Let's see here. Okay. That's one. Oh, it's too soft. Okay, I can turn it up. Give me 1 second. There we go. Alright, that should be a bit louder. Alrighty. That's 0 times that. So I think this will work. So basically, I had another multiplier to this main menu that will hopefully add a 4 in the case of f being equal to 2. Let's test it out. Okay, so that still makes sense. Oh, whoops. Well, that is incorrect. Curious. Oh, it's 1 and 3. I got the equation wrong. And that. Alright, that should hopefully fix it. Alright. Seems correct so far. Cool. Alright. So that's our new equation. Now that we've done that, we should have enough space to work with for our adjustments. First, let's set these locations all aligned. Oh no, chat. We have a bot. Spam the emote, chat. While I take care of this. Alright, sorry about that, chat. Let's get back to it. Alright. Try it there for full screen mode. Go a bit slower for the Lord bit display. Alrighty. Okay, we'll add the buttons. Actually, perhaps they should be the same size just for consistency. Over there. Okay. Yeah, okay, that's better. Okay. Now we have that. Bring this on over here. There we go. Now let's grab the others. For those who are wondering what I'm doing, I'm first setting up a template for this, then I'll make 3 copies of this, so here, here, and here, that are of the different combinations here, so on, off, immersive, and passive. And that'll allow me to program the buttons, which buttons are active and inactive, using some basic programming logic with flags to represent whether one button is active or inactive. You might say, why do it this way instead of making multiple objects for each of these buttons? Because this saves on the number of active objects being used, and thus makes things generally more efficient. So we're making use of one object instead of a bunch more objects. At least in this case, as it's a relatively small number of buttons, it's not too bad to program. So let's take a look. Ooh, I like that. Looks snazzy. I think, let's see here. I used to move things up just a smidge. Otherwise, I think it's pretty good. Alright. Let's try that. I think if we shift these buttons down slightly, then we'll be in a good spot. I'm realizing we want to align roughly the center there. Alright, that's fairly close. And now let's shift those buttons down. Okay. That's roughly how it'll look, at least position-wise. I think it looks pretty good. Let's just make sure it doesn't overlap with the other UI. Yep, blank space. Alright, now for the different combinations. So we copy that, paste that, and paste that. Now, put that to off. Bada bing, bada bum. That on. Bada bing, bada bum. Excellent. Copy that over here. We set up this way to represent basically different things being active or inactive. Just like that. Alrighty. Perfect. 4 different combinations, and there we go from there. Now, we get to programming. So I guess before we do anything, we'll need some flags. So, boop, boop. Actually, I think the way I programmed it in the testing frame was it was based off of a save file value. Let's take a look at that. It would have been animation, so let's see here. There is the manifest menu. Oh, there it is. Let's take a look at what we have over there, chat, so we can see all our animations. Okay. Let me show them from there. Okay, so I think we found the right spot. That is mouse over button and saying exit menu. No, that's not quite it. Oh, that might be it. Animation sequence to that. What did I not write? Records, details, page selection. Button press design. Okay, so this is the audio, I think. These have to be the other values. Yeah. Alright, there we go. Hello, Twin! Thanks for dropping by. How's it going? Welcome, welcome. We are in the midst of programming some UI for the Saints and... Well, not the Saints and Eights menu, but it's based off the Saints and Eights menu. So essentially, we just check for that. I'm guessing. I'll need to check something in chat. Give me 1 second. Be right back. Okay. 65, 1, 1 is equal to... So we'll base the chats off of these save file array values. Hello, Quinn. So what's that? So you can see your to-do list now. So what did you do today and what will you be doing? So what we're doing today, Quinn, is we are creating essentially what we did with the Saints and Agents menu, but for the main menu, because you will notice if we are here in the test frame, we have the ability to adjust music volume, sound effect volume, full screen mode, and the orbit display. But currently that functionality is not all there on the main menu. Like, we have the volume stuff, but we need to program this now, the ability for full screen mode and lower bit stuff. So I'm going to try and program that functionality right now. Obviously it doesn't do anything. I'm clicking my left mouse button here, nothing's happening, so I haven't programmed that yet. I'm just gonna work on that tonight. Okay. So the first thing we need in this equation, chat, is a way to check for whether or not the record value is equal to 2 and only to 2. So, let's see here. I think, let's see here. If I go with a max 0, kinda. So 1 minus 1 would be 0, and then 3 minus 1 would be 2. But now we need to do kind of the opposite logic. Times that. But the opposite logic would be, I think, 3 minus that. Yeah. So now basically, no matter what, if it were a 3 here, this would yield a 2, but then this would be a 0, and we'd get 0. If it's the opposite, this would be a... where this is like a 1, then this is 0, but this is a 2, but that still multiplies out to 0. But if it's a 2, 2 minus 1 is 1, and 3 minus 2 is also 1. So 1 times 1 is 1, which means then now we have a means to control a variable here. And that variable will have to be retrieving some values here. So in this case, 65. 1 and 1. For those who are wondering what I'm doing, this is essentially a mathematical way to check whether or not a certain save file value is active. In this case, whether the save file value is equal to 2, which is the options menu. And then this is a mathematical way to check for variables in different save file values and then assign increments to them. So this here represents the save file value for whether or not the full screen mode is set to on or off. And this here represents save file value for whether or not lower bit display mode is set to immersive or passive. And the reason for a different multiplier here is so that it increments further in the animation frames. No, it's a little confusing right now, but it will all make sense once I start programming ways to toggle that. Won't that value be propagated? Well, to an extent, it's kind of purposeful. So the save menu values when the main menu is active can only be a value of 1, 2, or 3. So because of that, the first half of this only really checks whether or not it's a value of 2 to indicate that's the options menu. If it's not, the value will be 0, and that won't impact the rest of the equation. But if it is the menu, then it's just 1 times what's in parentheses here. So the first value representing effectively a 0 or 1, and the second value representing effectively a 0 or a 2. And then you add those together to get your 4 different states, 0, 1, 2, and 3. It's basic bit logic, basically. So you have 2 bits in programming terms, with each bit representing either a 0 or a 1. Then you can effectively count 4 different unique values. So that's the principle behind it. And I use this kind of idea a lot in the programming to help make things more efficient. You know, do things like use fewer lines of code, use fewer objects, etc. All right. So, just to make sure that we're not completely insane. Hey, look at that, chat. Alright, auto-updated to the fact that this is... You'll notice, chat, that we are, Let me turn off the music real quick. So, you'll notice, chat, that we are currently not in full screen mode, and as a result of that, it actually defaulted to off, which is good. That's how it should behave. Now, the only thing we need to do here now is actually make it so that if we click on these buttons that they'll actually do stuff. So that's what we'll work on next. All right. this is where we shall do our editing. Ah, yep. I just think you were impressed to see how it auto adjusted. That's because it's based off of that formula. But even though if that's displaying correctly, we still need to be able to modify it from that point. So, first things first, we need to identify the locations of the equations. I believe this is a one-to-one thing. Let's first get the actual locations of everything. Alrighty. $256 to 28. Let's see here. Quinn asked, do you like serif or sans serif fonts? That's a good question. The thing is, I've used both before, and they both have their benefits, but at the same time, like, without actually, like, seeing an example of each type of font in front of me at the same time, I couldn't tell you which I prefer. But, I mean, at least from the font styles you see me using Heartwell, I'm not sure if they're very obviously one type of font or another, like, in terms of, like, serif versus sans serif. What would be the primary difference between those types of fonts, Quinn? Let's see here. Serif would be Times New Roman, and sans serif would be like what? Oh, I mean, it does depend on the circumstances. I think I prefer serif for more like titles and fancy things, like, for example, the Heartwell logo. Very much, I'm assuming this would be more of a serif type of font, where sans serif is more rounded. So I would say I prefer sans serif for like UI and stuff, but serif for more like titles or like proclamations of things. Hence why the Heartwell logo is probably a more serif-like font, whereas the more things you see like inside the manifest are more sans serif. So they each have their use cases. Okay. 316 to 247. There you go. What do you dislike about Sans Serif, Quinn? Because for me, I think probably the reason why I gravitate to Sans Serif for things in like the manifest especially is just simply because it's more compact. It feels so lacking in conviction. Well, I mean, I'll disagree. I think any font can have conviction if you word it well. It's just like if you have limited space and you need to make every pixel count, then you would definitely go with sans serif because you need it to be more compact. But if you have all the space in the world to work with and you want to really draw attention to a particular font, then serif would probably make more sense. Okay, that's one. $219, $228. In what way, Quinn? What would make that more humanistic versus not? Alright. No, 379, 247. Okay. So appeal to emotions are that. Oh, I see. I suppose. Okay, well, we know the x coordinates will be the same for over here. Really, the y coordinates there are different. It's a good question. You don't know, but you believe that humanists will vary with culture. True. True. Well, like I said, different use cases. At the end of the day, a lot of this comes down to aesthetics and also functionality. But if it's legible, and that's the goal, then there you go. It says that your culture is very direct and straightforward, so humanistic to use anything sharp, pointy, or square. Ah, I see. All right. We have our reference points. Now we need to do something with it. Ah, I see when. I see. $316, $247. There we go. Let's see here. Actually, wait a second. No, I got this backwards. There you go. $319 to $379. Alright. Hey Quinn, welcome back. Do you miss any of your comments with humanistic? Not too much, just I think you made some good points, and I don't really have much else to add. Alrighty. That goes there. This goes there. Oh, whoops. 0 is equal to 1. That will never happen. Oh no. Alright, make these coordinate zones correct. 299. Alrighty. Well, chat. Logically, this makes sense, but let's see if I programmed it correctly. I'm gonna pause. Or not. Well, let's find out. Second. So let's pause it. Find so right now full screen mode is off as expected. On. Off. Oh, something's not quite right there. Let's 5, 2, 1 is equal to 1. That's correct. So let's. Oh. Yeah, that's not right. Let's try that. Alright. Now obviously I need to it's at least incrementing the files correctly. I do have to actually force out full screen mode properly though, so let's check on that. Where is full screen mode? Oh, activate group full screen. That's what I gotta do. Yeah, duh. Okay, let's where is it? Where's it? Oh, not that. There we go. All right, and by doing that, we do this now, chat. Look at that. Yes, yes. I can cycle. I can cycle. It's glorious. It's glorious. Perfect. How cool is that, chat? We did it. Watch it. They've got the wrong sound effects here. But, I mean, remedying a sound effect is fairly straightforward. That should work. Not quite the right sound. Well, why it ends is incorrect. Gosh darn it. All right. There we go. That's what I wanted. We must, as they say, fire the laser. No. We are not firing lasers, but we are doing some adjustments here. There we go. Just to make sure that all saves properly. Yep, still there. Perfect. Excellent. We've got the power. We've got the power. Let's make sure the... Okay. That's what it is. It is the... Right now I'm just trying to test the outer edges of this. May actually want to give it a bit more breathing room. Currently, yeah. Currently that works. Okay. Let's make some adjustments to these zones. Let's see here. Aha! Works a bit better. Yeah, looks a bit more like expected. Yeah. Okay, well, that's definitely the way to do it. Okay. It'll be 318, 380, 227, 248. So basically we're just slightly increasing the radius on this. That doesn't make sense. Just where we were before, we were in the corners quite literally, so it would be the outer edge that would not have been contained within that. But now, I have a bit more to work with. Alrighty, and just like that, got that all ready to go. Got that all ready to go. Okay, let's test this out. Yes. Excellent. Right now I'm just testing the edges of the buttons, chat. Good. I didn't want that. I guess we're not technically hovering over it. Better. Quinn says, my voice sounds so comforting. Oh, thanks, Quinn. I try my best. As we can see, the buttons now work as intended, so they let us click the buttons. Pretty neat. And it all stays the same as it should. Excellent. That's all programmed. So with that, chat, I think I'll write some notes down here for what these do, and then we'll wrap up. Well, I guess we'll begin to wrap up at that point. So we create that UI, and we program that UI. Let's just add some notes here. Quinn says, can I start the game with passive to show the change? So the only way I can demonstrate passive lore bits right now would be to actually set to passive and then jump to a frame that has a lore bit that I haven't read yet. So let me see if I can do that real quick, just for the purpose of a demonstration. So let's set that to passive. Let's head on over to the central well. Actually, wait, I'm not even going to be in the right location in the central well. I'll be outside the map. Yep, I'm outside the map. Okay. Can't really read a lore bit if I'm outside the map. So let's load a save file. Sure. Okay. Here's what a passive lore bit looks like. Did I read this one? See? There it is. So that's a passive lore bit. As you can see in the bottom left corner, it's a lot less in your face compared to a immersive lore bit. So it's just kind of off into the side. So exact same text. Well, the big difference is obviously that because it's down the bottom left, it takes up a lot less of the screen. So if you're like a speedrunner, you might prefer this because it takes up less of the screen as opposed to up there. But yeah. So unfortunately, I don't have this quite programmed on this frame yet because I still have to propagate the code. We'll have to alt-tab that. But that's what an immersive lore bit, that's what a passive lore bit looks like, Quinn. The player still needs to press E? Yes, Quinn. The player does still need to press E. It is purely a cosmetic change. So functionally it's all identical, but from a cosmetic perspective, it's a bit different. All right, so where were we? Ah, yes. Let's set that back. Quinn says, just asking if the player still interacts with it, and then how is it passive? So the reason why it is passive, Quinn, is because it doesn't show a character portrait and it takes up a lot less space on the screen. So when you're in the intended UI is immersive, which is to actually show Dorothy's expressions and have it be up top on the screen, just like an old school RPG. But for those who prefer for that to take up a bit less space on the screen, Quinn says, would it be hard to keep the passive orbits on a timer, like it shows up for 3 seconds or something, and the player doesn't press C? That would add some additional complexity to it that would, I'd say, that really wouldn't stand to benefit anyone. Because if it's on like a default 3-second timer, then for people who might be slow readers or really trying to take things in, they would miss that. And conversely, if it were also on a 3-second timer for a speedrunner, that would automatically make it pointless to them, because they would probably prefer just to keep it at immersive then and just spam through E faster than 3 seconds per message. So I don't think a timer there would benefit anyone personally. And it would also make it more complicated for me to program as well. Because one of the nice things about the way I programmed the passive lore bit to make it a bit simpler from a programming perspective was to literally have it basically having 2 different strings and 2 different UI elements that literally are behaving at the same time as each other, except they are visible or invisible depending on what the player is doing. So in our case, yeah, you got it? Okay, sounds good. Controls. Actions can be. Oh, that's a nice emote of a bunny rabbit, Quinn. Where'd you get that? Or is that just something Twitch is providing? Quinn says it's the Easter Bunny from Doodle Keyboard. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that Doodle Keyboard stuff would actually work on Twitch. I guess that opens up a lot of possibilities, doesn't it? Alright. Quinn says there's also a kitty. Oh, look at that. There's a cute little kitten, isn't there? Alright, just let that chat. Now we have our comments here. And these comments are important because they'll, if I ever need to add this in the future or wonder, hey, what does this line of code do, this will explain it to myself. We got all of that. And yeah, chat, all in all, I think that was a pretty productive stream. We actually managed to program some new UI elements on the main menu. It all functions as intended. There's no shenanigans going on or chicanery. It just, as they say, it just works. So that brings us one step closer to the next patch. I'm really hoping to get the lore I wrote all implemented in the Saints and Answers menu soon, so that way I can start propagating the code for the Saints and Answers menu. And then after that, some updates to the boss fights, and then some testing, and then at that point, that would be the next patch. But, of course, just gotta, take things one step at a time. So for now, I think I will wrap things up. So if you're watching on Twitch, feel free to stick around for a raid. But if you're watching on YouTube and you like what you saw, please consider subscribing on YouTube. If you're subscribed on YouTube, don't let change your mind later. That's a great way to show support. If you're watching on YouTube, I've been an amazing night.